I mean, I judge at LA Spirits every year, and it was always a category, and now it's its own. It's its own separate. They're in a separate room. There's separate judges. There's so many.
God, having to drink a whole bunch of THC beverages and
Yeah,
then
they're fucked up by the end of the day.
talk about it in front of a room full of people is like my fucking nightmare. Like,
Well,
that
because
sounds
even
horrendous.
of course we spit, right? Even spitting, they're still absorbing.
Yeah,
right? So by the end of
exactly.
the day, they're all high as fucking guys.
Yeah.
It's really hilarious.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll, Lord. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil finds his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Souther Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson. Hope everyone survived 4th of July weekend with all 10 of your fingers and toes intact.
I've already seen ads, or I've already seen stuff on the internet about people losing fingers, losing hair. It's crazy. Every year.
Yeah, it's a proud American tradition. As always, The Simpsons said it best: celebrate the birth of your country by blowing up a small part of it.
Yeah, that tracks. Did you have a good 4th?
I did. I went upstate, got a cabin with some friends, got out of the city, which turned out to be a great idea in retrospect because it was like a bajillion degrees here, and it was only a cajillion degrees up in the Catskills, which, as we all know, is slightly less. And I want to talk about that experience, but first, I just want to do a little bit of programming news up here at the
big
top.
News for us.
Yeah, we plugged this a little bit last week during our 4th of July rerun. We plugged it during our after hours hangout at the end of June. But this is our first time to say on a official Speakeasy podcast that we are a official media partner of Tales of the Cocktail 2026, which is super exciting.
Pretty rad.
That just means for the listener, you don't just have to be happy for us, although you can if you want to. I won't stop you. But that also means you're going to get a lot of extra content in 2 weeks. Instead of just one show, we're going to be doing daily updates from the festival, poolside with some nominees for some really, really cool awards. Can't quite unveil the whole list yet, so you're just going to have to stay tuned. But we got some really great guests coming up. We're going to be, again, talking to people live from the festival, doing updates from some parties, bringing you a little piece of the beautiful insanity that is Tales of the Cocktail every year. So stay tuned for that. And, of course, an amazing organization, an institution in the bartending world, doing a lot of really great educational stuff, a lot of really great charitable work. Putting on this festival every year is the phrase massive undertaking doesn't even begin to do it justice. So they're all fantastic people down there. And I'm really, really excited for the chance to get to work with them.
I'm excited for the shows we're going to do. I'm excited for the extra programming that we're going to do, like man on the street interviews with people that we just see walking around some of our favorite spots down there. Plus, we'll be at the Spirited Awards on the red carpet, talking to people as they come off the stage with plates in hand. I think it's going to be a real fun time, and I'm stoked that the Speakeasy gets to be a part of it as a Spirited Award winner ourselves. So
absolutely, cool. This is just our way of giving back. We're a 19-time nominee, 1-time winner. So this is our chance to really contribute back to the community that's been so good to us.
Yeah, I hear you're. In addition to that, or maybe aside from that, you're doing something fun with a couple of brands that we like, right? Violet Crown and Workhorse Rye. What do you got going?
I am, yeah. Well, this is just something that I threw together over the last couple of days.
Side things are fun.
Yeah, a little side thing. Well, I don't know. These are, as you mentioned, 2 brands we've had on the show before, Workhorse Rye and Violet Crown Spirits out of Arizona and Texas, respectively. Really cool folks. Love all of the people involved with it. They're making really amazing spirits. And I don't know. I just kind of checked in with both of them. I do the thing that I try and do where if I think, I wonder how this person's doing, I don't just keep that thought to myself. I use the handy tracking devices that we all paid for on layaway. And I text them and say, hey, how's it going? And both of them were like, I don't know, man. Life's tough out there, which again isn't news to anybody, but I wanted to throw them a little love. So I'm doing a little promo here on the side. If you take a picture of yourself with a unopened bottle of any of the Workhorse Rye / Modern Ancient products from my friend Rob Easter, who makes both of those brands, and a picture of a product from Violet Crown Spirits, they make really, really amazing absinthe, as well as some really fantastic Amari and a super cool Genepi that we talked about on the show last year called Monk Parakeet. That is delightful. Take a picture with any of those products, tag me, tag the Speakeasy. I will send you a free bottle of Quiote Imports Agave, which you might recognize as an advertiser on the show. Not sure who it is that does those spots, but he has the voice of an absolute angel. So
Silky,
I'll talk
silky
to
smooth.
his people and get that out to you.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, man.
Great way to get attention for all brands involved. Plus, they're good people.
I know. They're wonderful people.
Speaking of good people,
Speaking of the best people, in fact, we
Yeah, let's
have
go.
in the studio with us today industry giants, the authors of the Bartender's Manifesto and the newly released The Classic Cocktail Sessions. It's Toby Maloney and Emma Janzen. Thank you so much for joining us, y'all.
Hey, thanks for having us.
good to see you both zooming in from different places. Toby, I know you're down in New Orleans, Louisiana, and Emma, you're zooming in all the way from Mexico City, where you're down doing some work on your book Mezcal, like an update, right? You're coming up on the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, that's right. Next year, we'll release the second edition. It's like 20,000 more words, more photos. So it's a little bit more of a revised edition. It's kind of going to be a new book, which is exciting and also terrifying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to imagine much has changed in the 10 years since you wrote that book with the rapid acceleration of that particular category.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ground to cover.
Well, you're great at covering ground, and the two of you have spent a lot of time writing together. At this point, do you guys finish each other's sentences / each other's edits? Like, how does the collab go between the two of you?
More or less, yeah. Go ahead, Toby.
I'm going to edit that so it sounds like you finished each other's sentences.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got to commit to the bit, y'all.
So it's pretty much we started kind of the same way, where Emma would be like, give me a topic, and then she would be like, write every single thing you know about this particular thing. And then I would do kind of a stream of consciousness, just write, and then give her an exuberant amount of words. And then she would go in and make it all make sense. I did the easy part. She always does the hard part.
So basically, you're Clark Griswold handing young Russ that giant ball of Christmas lights, and she has to unravel it.
That is a very apt metaphor. Yes.
And not fall off the roof while doing it. Yeah, exactly. We have a really good creative relationship, like in Google Docs. And I think, like you said, also like at this point I think our first meeting was in 2019. So we've been working together for almost 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could say that we're work married and some people call it that.
Well, collaborating on creative endeavors like this is like such an intimate process. Like it's difficult to express to people who have never done it that it really is like
Mind melding.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, exactly.
Or parenting, because what you are doing is you're trying to raise this child, and you both might have slightly different ideas on how that should happen, and but you have the same goal for it to be a great thing when it matures.
Sure. Or, I mean, I think siblings might make sense, except we don't fight, really. We don't fight. So maybe more like cousins?
Cool cousins.
Cool cousins who like to drink a lot and hang out and write words.
Those are the best kinds of cousins. Well, this brings me to something that I wanted to ask the two of you up front, which is what's something that you feel like you've learned about each other through writing that you never would have learned if you were just hanging out together at bars, even if you were really, really good friends?
Wow, that's a good one.
I know everything about Toby now, basically.
That's terrifying.
I know all of like so many of his good stories. Like I'm constantly like hanging out with other people and they'll say something and I'm like, Toby has a really good story about that. And I'm like, I will tell his story for him in lieu of having my own stories. So yeah, there's not much that I don't think I know these days.
Does that road go both ways? Right? Do you feel like you're inside of Emma's head as much as she's inside of yours?
I mean, I would say that a lot of times when I'm writing or especially rewriting, I kind of do the WWEJD, what would Emma Janzen do? And that's really helpful, and kind of seeing how structure and words and such are seen through her eyes. And, that sort of creativity and that sort of words are how we think and how we express ourselves. So I feel like I have a really good handle on how she views cocktails in the world.
And I know Souther, every time he has a major decision to make, he always just thinks to himself, what would Greg do in this situation?
Yeah, I do. Greg would run off to another wedding or baseball game.
Exactly. Never fails. It's a great tactic.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot on the show. Almost everybody in our field of endeavor, especially the bartenders, are kind of alphas, right? We want to be the funniest, the loudest, the most bombastic, etc. I'm sure that causes a little bit of friction between the two of you from time to time. But like, who's more likely to kill a great idea or a great piece because you don't think it's clear enough?
I'll take that one.
Yeah,
because it's Emma. Emma, I literally call Emma.
You're saying I'll take that. It's me.
No.
I'll take that one because it's her.
I mean, she is the butcher. She kills all of my darlings. Not all of my darlings, but she has killed so many thousands of them at this point. The books are 60,000 and 70,000 words each, but we've written probably close to 350,000 words together. Whoa. So, sure. It's her. She is the person who will kill the ideas that need to be killed. She's never genocidal without reason.
Sure. Emma the Butcher Janzen.
Which makes it better. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is kind of, this situation is also kind of unique to Toby because every co-author situation is different, right? And so there have definitely been some situations where I kind of have to pry information out of the other person, which can take a long time. I would always rather have 8 really good ideas than have to kind of sift through them and pick out the best ones. And with Toby, that's never a problem. It's always here's 10, here's 20 good ideas. And I'm like, fuck, how do I there's so many that are so good sometimes that I don't want to have to kill them, but like he said, by nature of word count, constantly hanging over our heads, I've learned how to make kind of snap decisions and make it an intuitive thing. So it's which one makes me laugh the most, or which one do I remember the next day? When I'm thinking back on, okay, how can we make this stronger? How can we make this more interesting? That kind of stuff.
She's made me so much better of a writer by doing that, by making me rewrite kind of on the fly, where she's like, you've used this particular turn of phrase or analogy or whatever, give me 3 more. And so then I have to sit and really think through the problem and give her 3 or 5 wildly different versions of the same thing in the beginning. And so that process it was so painful in the beginning, and now it's absolutely my favorite part, probably.
Now you're numb to it.
now I'm it's like Malort. Now I'm just bring it on.
Oh, great. I'll take it.
It's funny. One of the first pieces of advice I ever got as a writer when I was 16 or 17 was always have someone who doesn't love you read your work, which I totally get the sentiment behind that, but I feel like as your relationships evolve in this space, it's have someone who loves you enough to be this is not your best. Read your work.
That's
a good call.
We have our editors at Clarkson Potter who don't love us.
Yeah, a healthy mix of both, I think. Let's talk about the work itself. So Manifesto taught people how to think like bartenders. That was kind of its goal. Whereas the classic cocktail session teaches people how to make these classic cocktails better, really kind of digs deep into the nitty gritty of these specific classics. Was that always where you envisioned going next? I know that the creative brain, as soon as you finish something, it's and here's what I want to do for the next project. So as you were having those conversations after Manifesto came out, was this what you were talking about, or did your readers kind of guide you to what you were going to do for your sequel?
We threw a lot of ideas around. I remember I was actually looking in the doc a few months ago, because it was okay, let's do another one. And I didn't have anything else queued up, and the first book was so much fun to write that it was yeah, let's explore some ideas. And at some point, I think it was a twofold thing. The first part was we realized that we had all of these classic cocktail case studies written already, because they were supposed to go in the first book. We had I think it was daiquiri, martini. I mean, we had like 20, 25. And so foolishly I thought, oh, we could just throw these together and it would like come together really quickly. Spoiler alert, it did not come together really quickly at all. But the more we thought about it, the more we realized that there was kind of a need for this book out in the world. I think for me, that realization came like when I was at home, like making a martini or a gimlet or something after work. I just wanted a book that was like a quick reference, like that just had all of Toby's specs for the classics. So I was tired of pulling out my phone. I wanted to have a physical thing that I could riff through. And we put it, we organized it alphabetically, so it's super easy to find whatever drink you're looking for. And I wanted like those, like room in the margins to like scribble my own, tiny adjustments. And I figured if I want that, surely other people do. I was also thinking about like my cousin and some of my friends who like to make drinks at home. And every once in a while I drop like a small little nugget of knowledge that Toby taught me during the process of writing the first book. I have a memory of like French 75s and I was like, if you keep your sparkling wine in the fridge, like if you keep it super cold, the texture is going to be much better. The bubbles are going to be tighter. They're going to last longer. And I remember their head was just like, and I was like, oh, well, like, I just know that now, but I forget that like I have had all those years of one-on-one training with Toby Maloney. So we were also thinking about it for that perspective. And then Toby brought in, the perspective from behind the bar, if you want to talk about that as well, like that side of our audience.
One of the things we noticed also, we had just come out of COVID and we've been drinking a lot in different bars. And we noticed that a lot of the bartenders that were up and coming didn't have the same mentorship, didn't have the same oral tradition because a bunch of old heads dipped out during COVID. And so, I had Crafted the Cocktail, Joy of Mixology, as those kind of foundational books about the classic cocktails. And we didn't think there was one like that. And so from that, the other thing I really wanted to do was to say, this is where you start, is where with this recipe, but you should personalize it because every person has a different palate. And if you're doing it in a bar, every bar has a different voice. The daiquiri is different in Death and Company, PDT, Violet Hour, all of these places by a little bit for different reasons. And so the whole idea was to not just take this one spec as the end all be all, but take it, understand what it is, and then tweak it a little bit to make it absolutely yours. And just a really quick, I want to throw aside about this is one of the things we're doing during Tales is we have copies. We both have yearbooks of copies of the classic cocktail sessions, and we'll be wandering around Tales getting other people's favorite spec for the drinks that we have in the book.
I love it. Yeah, when my first book came out, I got the copy that's just blank inside, right? They send you one that's a proof of like just its size. So it's got the cover, but it's just blank. I took it to every signing, and every time I signed someone's book, I had them sign that for me. So I have this book that's so just
cool.
full.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it sounds like to me like Manifesto taught people sort of the language, right? Do you think that then Classic Cocktail is showing people how to have a conversation with that language that you've now taught them? Was that the idea maybe?
I think the sessions is more of a prequel that where this is more of a 101. It is certainly not Mr. Boston's 101, but it is a lot of the same techniques and thoughts and verbiage that are used in the Manifesto are used in sessions, but it's a jumping off point to get to the place where you've now made classics, and then Manifesto is how to create your own completely different drinks from the classics.
Yeah, I think I kind of like the way that framing those other, because in Manifesto we do teach it more like in big picture theory, right? So it's like, here's balance, here's texture, here's temperature. We have a chapter on each one of those. We have a chapter on philosophies. We have a chapter on hospitality. And in this book, so if you read Manifesto first, you know the approach to each one of these techniques. And then when you pick this book up, we're not literally saying like, here's how to make good texture, broadly speaking. We're saying, okay, there's a Negroni right in front of you. This is how you get good texture out of this Negroni. But buy through the techniques. So it is, like Toby said, like we are still teaching the same things. We're teaching about aroma, but you are having a conversation in real time with that cocktail that's in front of you. So like the old fashioned, we say play around with the garnish, right? So it's like, try it with a lemon peel, make another round, try it with the orange on top, make another round, try it with grapefruit on top. And then you are dialoguing with that aroma. You're figuring out what you like in the process of also understanding the way that aroma works. And I think in Manifesto, we didn't really like walk you through it in real time, but that's definitely like the intention with this book.
If you're hearing the sound of my voice right now, I've got some bad news for you. You are only getting about 60 to 70% of the conversation that we had today with our guest. But if you want to hear the whole thing, you can join us and become a regular on our Patreon.
That's right. To hear the rest of the conversation, join us on our Patreon, become one of our regulars, and you'll receive all kinds of perks, including ad-free listening, so you won't have to hear us do this again.
And in addition to ad-free listening and longer shows, you are also going to get cocktail recipes from all of our guests, access to our live monthly hangouts, and a free cocktail kit each and every month from our good friends at Shaker and Spoon.
So head over to Patreon and become a regular of the Speakeasy. We'd love to have you there. Cheers.
As any good creative project does, it sounds like writing both of these books has kind of changed the two of you. It's changed the way you view the subject. It's changed the way you view your readers. But the world has also changed quite a bit since 2022 when Manifesto came out. So how did the fact that you're now writing for an audience in 2026, how did that change not only the process of writing book number 2, but also kind of your worldview on the world of bars and cocktails that you were reporting on here?
I think one of the big things that happened during COVID was so many people were locked in their houses making cocktails that there is such an explosion of home bartenders who are just as knowledgeable, just as intense about cocktails as a professional bartender. And so it's really exciting to be able to teach people that are going to use it at their house and not necessarily at a bar, and having them along for the ride has been great.
Toby, you've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cocktails in your career. What still surprises you about cocktail making in general, or what maybe did you stumble across in this book that surprised you? Or are you too jaded?
Could
also be that.
I feel like every time I learn something, I realize that I need to learn so much more. It's kind of the fall end of the Dunning-Kruger where I know nothing about cocktails because I learn something every single day about it, and there's no end in sight. We spent so much time really picking apart how you shake egg whites, how you shake cream, how you do all of these things that I had gotten to the point where I'd stopped thinking about. And so to kind of go back, look at it, go read on food and cooking, come back, look at it, make some drinks with it, like that sort of process, I think I learned a little something about every single drink and a little bit about techniques all along the way.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And I think it's examination, right? It's a little bit of navel gazing, of course, but when you sit down and say to yourself, whatever to drink, a daiquiri, you say, well, I'm going to make a daiquiri. Daiquiri's pretty straightforward. It's got sugar, it's got lime, it's got rum. We're going to shake it up. It's good. But when you have to like examine every step and dig into the minutia of every step, because now your charge is to relay this information to someone else, a stranger who you're not even going to be in the room with, you have to get it to a place where then Emma can condense it to a place that all the information is there, and hopefully there's no question unanswered, right?
And this actually brings me to a question I wanted to pose to Emma, because Emma, you've interviewed bartenders, producers, distillers, bootleggers from all over the world in the course of your career. Is there something that you've found that people behind the bar consistently misunderstand about their own profession?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's think about
we came
all
ready,
of these,
Emma. We came ready for you.
I know, but y'all wouldn't believe sometimes the questions aren't good.
Oh no,
there's no bad question. There's no bad question. That doesn't mean they're like not great. No, I'm thinking back on the many, many years. First thing that popped to mind, which it might be a little sideways of the question, but maybe still relevant, is well, I don't know. It also just sounds like I'm going to just keep plugging the book. But the more I travel
That's
these
why
days,
we're here, Emma. We're plugging your book. This whole episode is that's what this is. That's what
really
radio
bad, so bad at self promotion.
Well, good. We're here to do it for you. Let's go.
Good, thank you so much. No, I think with as often as I am traveling these days, and over the years as well, I do think there is, especially right now, kind of just a sense that you don't need to know the classics, or that you don't need to get the technique right on them, or understand the things that we teach in these books, right? I think most people think about balance, but texture, temperature, and aroma. I'm consistently in bars where the garnish is not serving a purpose at all. And I'm like, this is a missed opportunity to like create a much cooler story in this drink. If I get another cold, like lukewarm daiquiri or martini, I'm going to scream. The texture, and then, all of those things change the texture too. So like when we were in New York for the launch party, the first place that Toby and I went for a drink together before the party was at Echo Lake in Brooklyn. It's Paul McGee's new bar.
Great, I've been. It's awesome.
Y'all might know. Yeah, from Three Dots in Lost Lake in Chicago. He opened this bar with his partner Chloe, who used to work at Punch, and they've got a whole list of daiquiris, and so they sent out a few, and I was just floored by how perfectly cold, perfectly frothy, like everything, like the technique was so there. And I was like, Paul, dude, like these are so fucking cold. I was like, this is great. And he looks at me like, well, yeah. I'm like, he's like, it's supposed to be. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know, dude, like it's bad out there. So I think, you go to a bar and of course, like maybe they can make these things, but they're not thinking about the experience of drinking that cocktail and what that's going to be like. Maybe because it doesn't have like foam and bubbles and smoke and all of those things, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be paying attention to the story that cocktail is telling, and also like the experience that someone's going to have drinking it.
Yeah, I try and impress upon people all the time that texture and flavor are intrinsically connected. You wouldn't like flat Coca-Cola as much as you like Coca-Cola. You wouldn't like carbonated milk as much as you might like milk. Right? The texture means a lot. And of course, temperature plays into that as well. Is there one cocktail that you've completely changed your mind about over the time that you guys been working together?
You got one, Tom?
Sure. And this happened kind of in both books, but one night I was writing about the stinger as an ancillary thing to another cocktail in Manifesto. And I had tried in my early career to, mixologize it by bringing the creme de menthe way down and like adding a little bit of Fernet and like doing all of these things to not lean into what I considered maybe a less sophisticated flavor of the creme de menthe. And then I remembered once making Dale DeGroff's version, which is equal parts cognac and creme de menthe. And you shake it viciously, which is weird because you normally don't shake drinks that don't have egg, cream, or citrus in it. And then you dirty dump over, or strain it out over crushed ice and put a big thing of mint on it. And it is so good. And, I constantly think of, like, there's lots of different ways to look at a drink, and looking at it like a mixologist oftentimes is not the right way to look at that particular cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will always remember, this is for a seminar at Tales, actually. I was doing a recipe for a Harvey Wallbanger, which I don't think was a cocktail I'd ever gotten called when I was behind the bar. I wasn't sure that I'd ever actually made one before, despite.
Were you ever behind the bar in 1960?
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I know I look really good for 87, but just weirdly it never happened. So I made my first Harvey Wallbanger ever because I was raised in the neoclassical tradition. I used fresh orange juice, and I was like, this doesn't work. It's too flabby. There's not enough acid in here. So I used acid corrected OJ. That was an overcorrection, way too sour, didn't work. I tried fluffy OJ, which for the listener is you basically peel the skin off of an orange and then put the entire thing, pith, pulp, and all into a blender to give it some texture, like we're talking about. And that was kind of there. And then I did a 60-40 mix of the fluffy OJ with the acid corrected OJ, and it just sang. It was magical. And I'm just walking around my living room feeling like a genius until it occurs to me, this is a drink from the 1970s. They weren't using orange juice. They were using that fucking frozen concentrate that came out of a cardboard tube in the grocery store, which has that pulp and has that extra acid. I'm like, that's what they built this drink around. We didn't know orange juice came from oranges until 2002. We just hadn't made that technological leap yet.
That's a perfect analogy. Yeah, exactly.
But it brings me to something that I wanted to talk with you guys about, which is there's this balance, I think, between what we're talking about, which is chasing originality at the expense of not knowing the classics, and also kind of hiding a little bit behind tradition and behind, well, this is the way that people are supposed to do it. So where do you find the right balance is, especially as you're writing these books for folks who might be interested in getting into mixing drinks professionally themselves?
I mean, I can tell you that Emma and I are still arguing about what makes what's the difference between a tweak of the drink and it becoming a riff. Like, we have not answered that question ourselves. And so I think what we tried to do with this book was to give the idea that it really comes down to understanding why the drink works, and then within certain parameters, make changes that you intuitively know that it's going to work for your palate, and start there, and then do a bunch of, and then try a bunch over a short period of time. You could, if you make 12 drinks over a year, you're never going to get that drink right. If you make 12 drinks over 3 days, you're going to really nail that recipe.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of an ongoing conversation and an ongoing quest to find that balance. And I think that's something that we kind of try to celebrate in this book, right? Like, we say very clearly that, like, we're not just sticking to the way things have always been done with this recipe or that recipe. Palates change, right? And people's understanding of cocktails has changed, and the way that we interact with them has changed. And so, like, to just have this one thing in a bubble is kind of a missed opportunity, I think, if that makes sense. And and if you look at these recipes as something that can evolve and should evolve, that's just a lot more fun, right? It's a lot more fun, and to make these classics your own too, like by throwing in a dash of bitters here or there, which I do all the fucking time now. Thank you, Toby. If a drink doesn't have any bitters at all, I'm basically like, just one dash of orange, please, or whatever. You're making it more enjoyable for yourself at the same time, and I think that's kind of a lovely thing.
I would like to say one thing kind of on that note, that there aren't a lot of drinks in this book that the author, creator of the cocktail is still alive and out there making things. And we changed some of those drinks, some of them maybe even significantly. And we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we have the utmost respect and we love these drinks. That's why I included them, and that's why we made these little tweaks to them. The one that I'm thinking of mostly is in our breakfast martini, we added some Coca Americano, which was in no way, shape, or form in the original recipe, but it stretched it out. It added another layer of bitterness, and it really just came alive. The original is delicious, and you should drink that all the time. But this is kind of a way of showing that, when the breakfast martini came out, not a lot of places had Coca Americano. So.
Yeah. And the idea is not to, like, we're not trying to riff, right? And we're not trying to go too far from the original. I think the idea with every spec was, like, how do we keep the soul of this drink intact? How do we keep its DNA still there? And just kind of, like, adjust it a little bit so that when the reader goes through it and makes it themselves, ideally they're learning from our adjustment how to adjust it for themselves, if that makes sense.
Having agency to tweak and move about and try different things.
Well, as with any creative thing, oftentimes the author is the person least qualified to understand what's cool about the thing that they've made. See the Star Wars prequel trilogy. But, I think there's definitely a healthy middle ground there between I'm going to turn an old fashioned into an 18-touch monstrosity, and I'm going to do this the exact same way that it was originally written down in 1865, because that's the only correct way to do it.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
a way to honor the spirit if you know the fundamentals without being too wild and crazy with it. Sounds like that was kind of your guiding light as you were writing about these drinks.
Exactly.
Yeah, a riff more than a reconstruction. Well, while we're tackling drinks, what's a drink maybe that's in the book that would be helpful? What's a drink that's in the book that everyone thinks is simple until they actually try and make it perfectly, or make it, based on your, spec and knowledge?
I think the Clover Club is the one that I am going to put forth for that. I've made so many Clover Clubs over the course of my career in general, but coming up with the recipe testing and such for this book, and I really like where we are. And then with the yearbook, Julie wrote like, this is a monstrosity.
She's like, this is not my spec. Yeah. You have the wrong spec.
And I think it's one that it has just enough things that you can play around with a lot of different components and really get different versions of the same drink that are all delicious, but are wildly different.
I'm going White Russian. Because that's also one that we that's one we kind of argued about whether or not we should even put in. Because there were a lot of those conversations. I'm kind of a sucker for the drink. And so it's one that I've played with over the years, and getting good balance and texture, and then playing with aroma. Like, there are so many things that you can do to make a really lovely, structured version of that, as opposed to, just tossing the ingredients together, which I think is what most people do. And you kind of think of it as a sloppy drink, right? It's like, its DNA is, you throw it together and then go bowling. But what really changed that recipe in the book was a visit to Gus's Sip and Dip in Chicago, where they're basically doing also kind of what we were doing with the book, which is it's a menu just of classics. And they have just dialed in their technique and their approaches to the nth degree. And so they're some of the best versions of these classics that you're ever going to get. And they hand whip the cream on the White Russian. And when I tasted it, I was like, oh, it's just it's a fluffy pillow. It was so beautiful. It has become this lovely, there's a word that's not coming to me, but this beautiful cloud of a drink, while still maintaining good bitterness, because coffee has, it's got the bitterness, but then coffee liqueurs can be super sweet. And so for me, a White Russian with just Kahlua is too sweet. You want to split base with one of the new modern coffee liqueurs, which are too dry to do on their own. You want that sweetness, but I could go on forever about this drink. But the other thing they do at the bar was, I think they bottom they're going to yell at me if I get this wrong. I think they bottom the cream and then pour the cocktail on top, which also completely changes the experience of drinking it if you were to do vice versa. And so there are so many things you can do to make a really cool, just standard White Russian without coloring outside of the lines. And that one for me is I just get so excited about it because it's unexpected,
I still remember being 21 and walking into a bar and ordering a White Russian and having the bartender say, "Can I see your ID again?" And I'd never really thought of it being something that you could make that elevated without having to do a, air quotes here, riff on it.
I've tried to write about it, but for other publications, and they were like, "Our readers don't like creamy drinks." I was like, okay.
Wow.
You have an open invitation to come on here anytime you want and do 90 minutes on the White Russian. We will totally. This is your ceiling. Paint your Sistine Chapel.
Oh my God! Here we go.
Although this does bring up a question that I wanted to ask you guys. There's this belief that there is a certain drink that you can watch a bartender make, be it an old fashioned or a daiquiri or a Negroni, but something. There's this ism that people like to throw around, which is you can learn everything you need to know about a bartender by watching them make this X specific drink. I've always kind of thought that was bullshit, but I'm open to be proven wrong. What do you two think about this? And if you think I'm wrong, what is that drink for you?
Painting in broad strokes here, but I think it's not even the cocktail. I think if you walk into a bar and it's the bar mop is not folded and their tins are all in the sink and there's bottles everywhere. I know some great ADHD bartenders who can perform well that way, but the vast majority of people, if your mind is really scattered and you don't have your Mies and you don't have your setup straight, you're not going to make as great a cocktails as if you are relying on muscle memory to do the basic things, and so you can really concentrate on technique and flavor and balance and aroma and texture.
Oh yeah, full agree on that.
I've heard that a lot, and I think I've always liked the saying, and I've always wanted it to be true. And for me, it was like a martini, just a classic gin martini, and that is kind of like a litmus that I use in bars. But I think it could really be any drink, right? Because it's just about watching how they're doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. If it's a drink that you're making a la minute, right? So if you've got something batched and you're just pouring it out, then that's not necessarily going to give me a lot of information about who you are or what your program is or how you're making the drink. So maybe that is more specific to classics and or house drinks that people actually have to jigger the citrus and jigger the spirit and jigger the liqueur, which, is not happening everywhere anymore.
I'm in Toby's camp a little bit more, but also it does kind of sway to Emma's viewpoint as well. When I was in kitchens and running kitchens, we would have people stage for 3 nights and work through all stations in the kitchen. And on the last bit of the last night, we'd set them up with a clean station and say, you have free reign to everything you've seen in this kitchen. I need you to make me an omelet, right? And watching them make an omelet shows how, are they restrained? Are they just making me a simple Parmesan cheese and herb omelet? Or are they reaching for the truffles and the scallops that they saw when they were on garde manger? Are they clean? Is their station remaining clean? Or are they a mess while they do this? The technique of cooking the omelet, is there any brown on it? Is it a very French style? I think that we can glean a whole lot about how someone is making all their drinks by watching them make one of their drinks, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But I will say, for me, it's kind of always been the Negroni. I want to see how they, how long do they stir? That martini that you just mentioned, was it frosty cold? Did they stir it long enough? Was it diluted enough? Did they make it to your spec or their own spec? And what is that spec?
Did they ask?
Crazy. Yeah, the martini drives me crazy. I always say martini drinkers are very specific about what they want. Martinis are like eggs. People are very specific about their order, but they'll pretty much consume whatever you put in front of them. And I say this as a guy who worked at the Waffle House. Yeah.
Sold a lot of martinis at the Waffle House. It was their number one mixologist there.
Yeah. Well, you've written this book all about classics. What's a classic that deserves another 50 years of attention? I assume that we think all the drinks in there will last forever, but there's a chance that they won't. Is there one that you feel very adamant should survive another 50 years?
I'll go with 2 drinks, one being the Hurricane. I think that if you make the right Festinola syrup, that drink is just a banger. And then the Jet Pilot. I think also when you get the right ratios and you make that drink right, it is just so much more than the sum of its parts. It's really, really exceptional.
As a former New Orleanian, and now you've just moved to New Orleans, I'm really happy to hear you say the Hurricane. I think it's a drink that doesn't get as much play as it should.
It has such a bad reputation.
It really does. And I've riffed on that drink in many of the bars that I've had oversee and the Fascinola is a fascinating syrup that confuses the hell out of literally everyone.
Yeah.
Emma, you got one?
Yeah. What popped to mind was the bamboo first, because I think it's just such a lovely, elegant, simple, but very complex kind of drink. And then also the Jungle Bird, since you were talking about kind of tropical beverages. I love a good jungle bird. I mean, I would hate to see that new generations not ever get to try one of those.
Wow, that is 4 drinks that I would not have called as the answer to that question, but they all no clearly deserve their place in the pantheon, which is fantastic. And this makes me extra curious about our usual last question that we ask all of our guests. Where are you guys drinking these days? What are some spots you want to shout out?
I'll go first. I just recently moved back to Chicago because we were living in Michigan for a while. And so I am kind of trying to get my feet back on the ground there, in like a day-to-day kind of basis. So I'm going to a lot of my favorite old places, Longman and Eagle, Estereo, we were at Billy Sunday recently. Some of the new bars I love, Bisou. I'm kind of like a moth to a flame at Bisou. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Karis Listening Bar is just delightful. And that's a good segue to Toby because Gina Hoover from New Orleans used to work at Cure, is the one who's running the bar program at Karis, and she's just phenomenal. And so that's a really good one. If I were in New Orleans, I'd be drinking at Cure.
Yeah. Where are you drinking, Toby?
I mean, obviously Cure is way up there. I drink a lot at Holy Diver because it's kind of one of my locals. I think there's some really spectacular cocktails coming out of the bar at Emerald's. Alex is just the real deal, and what she does is really spectacular. Jewel of the South and Manolino, do I even need to say that?
Right.
There's literally too many bars to think about in New Orleans to bring it down to even 10. So I'm going to stop there.
Well, all sound great, and I used to live both in Chicago and in New Orleans, so I can attest to many of the ones you've listed, and then I've also maybe added a few to my list based on what Emma said. So next time I'm in Chicago, be a few new spots for me. Well, it's been super awesome having you guys on to talk about the new book and catch up in general. I can't wait to see you guys down in New Orleans when we'll be down there. Maybe we'll get you on air again to do a little. We're going to be doing some man on the street stuff for Tales of the Cocktail. We're going to be doing some full podcasts as well. But I really appreciate your time and being so thoughtful with your answers and really digging in with us.
Yeah, thanks. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Loved having you here. Really excited to check out the book. All of our listeners should too. And if our listeners wanted to follow along with your exploits, what are some Instagram handles that y'all want to plug that people can keep up with what you're up to?
Mine's just my name. It's Emma Janzen. And then we've got one just for the book. Which I promise will continue to populate throughout the year. We have some fun ideas for that one coming down the line. So definitely keep an eye on Classic Cocktail Sessions.
And I'm just Toby Cocktail on Instagram.
Toby Cocktail.
We like it. Keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also wanted to ask, I know this is not the first or even second appearance on the show for each of you. Do you two know how many times you've been on the Speakeasy? What number appearance is this for y'all?
I think it's 2 and 3, right? Emma's been on twice before, and you've been on 3 times before.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so I have this dream. You know how on Saturday Night Live, if you host 5 times,
velvet
you
coat,
get a red
baby.
jacket?
Mm-hmm.
The velvet coat.
Yeah, the velvet
Love
coat.
this.
They make little koozies that have tiny little sleeves, so they kind of look like jackets. I don't think we've had any 5-time guests yet, but Toby, I guess you're one frequent shopper card punch away from getting one of these. So I'm looking into getting these things made.
All right, Emma, let's write another book.
Let's do it.
Cozy.
Yeah.
Well,
Challenge accepted.
I know we're here at the end and everything, but I was thinking over and over, and I think I even mentioned this the first time when you said you wrote 180,000 words to break it down to 60,000 words, and I was like, well, you got 2 other books on the floor, like just sweep them up, right?
That's right.
So like surely a lot of the stuff that gets cut can be edited and made into something fresh and new of its own, right? Like you've already written them, is what I'm saying.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll budget a year for it, and it'll take us 4. So we'll see y'all in 2030.
We'll be here and
Overpromise,
eligible for
underdeliver.
another
That's the way.
plate. So we'll have to make sure that's a
right.
good episode.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Well, Toby, Emma, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a blast. Everyone should go and check out the Classic Cocktail Sessions. But that is going to do it for us this week on the show. If you want to keep hanging out poolside with us this summer, you can become a regular on our Patreon. Our regulars get ad-free shows, longer shows, cocktail recipes from all of our guests, and a curated monthly selection of seasonal bitters from Bitter Queens down in Nolens, where we will all soon be. I'm excited to be on their home turf in a few weeks because Greg, who runs Bitter Queens, is delightful. So if you want to support his work and the show, you can sign up and become a regular today. And when you do, you are also going to get access to our monthly after hours live hangouts, the next of which is Monday, July 27th at 8 p.m. We had an awesome turnout for last month's hangout, and July's after hours has the distinction of being our first public appearance post Tales of the Cocktail. So if you want to hear the real tea of what went down this year, sign up, become a regular, and get that hot goss. And now it is time for our weekly Sauced update. What is happening over at Sauced HQ Souther?
Over at Sauce, yeah, we've been hard at work because we're stacking up a few episodes because I'll be gone to Tales for a full week and want to get a few episodes ahead. But we just canned fish tacos. So a great episode where we talk all about the origins of the Baja fish taco. Super fun and super delicious.
Love some fish tacos. So check out Sauced. Check out your local fish taco spot. Throw them some love.
Right.
Why not? And be sure to tune in next week when our guest is Tommy Tardy of the Flatiron Room, which is a Midtown classic here in NYC since 2012. Tune in to hear what they're up to these days. But for now, cheers, everybody.
Cheers, gang. Thank you.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his